Have you or someone you know experienced unexplained health issues potentially linked to electronic warfare? Project Archimedes, in conjunction with law firm Disabled Rights Advocates, is leading a groundbreaking worldwide action against the United States government, focusing on the impacts of 5G, EMF, and other unexplained phenomena, including what's known as Havana Syndrome.
We're dealing with energy weapons.
Permanent brain injuries, the unexplained, serious medical harm connected to a mysterious direct-to-energy weapon.
It was like this piercing feeling on the side of my head.
If you've suffered from symptoms like headaches, dizziness, memory loss, or other unusual health effects that you believe could be related to these technologies, we want to hear from you. We are seeking justice for those affected by these potentially harmful technologies.
Sharp, localized ear pain, dull unilateral headache, tinnitus or ringing in one ear, vertigo, visual focusing issues, disorientation, nausea, and extreme fatigue.
This was the most terrifying experience of my life. I had no control.
By joining this movement, you could help prevent future harm and potentially seek compensation for what has been endured.
We have created a global class action lawsuit. Foreign litigants would be availed to the U.S. courts to seek recovery for those who caused the damage. All roads point back to the United States.
To learn more about your rights, potential eligibility, and how to join the movement, visit projectarchimedes.org.
So we're going to sue in the United States with people from all over the planet who qualify to be a plaintiff simply on the basis that they spend an hour or more a day within 100 meters of a 5G transmitter.
Project Archimedes and attorney Todd Callender are committed to fighting for those who have been impacted.
These are the people who can't fight for themselves. They're the ones who can't hire the lawyer.
Visit projectarchimedes.org today to find out more about joining the movement.
With Broken Truth, with Truth Be Told, I'm John Davidson. Todd Callender is out. Last night we had an excellent presentation from Donald Trump to the joint session of Congress. And in that statement that he made, or in his speech, he discussed bipartisanship and how he could not make the Democrats happy. This has unfortunately been something that I and many of the others have focused on the last few years. How do we work together to accomplish like-minded goals, even when we are part of different political parties? Let's hope that somehow or another, our members of our elected offices can find a way to do this, because there are many issues that we need to get past petty partisanship to approach. One of those is child abuse and how our courts and justice systems handle child abuse. Today with me is someone who knows how to attract attention to get positive change made. A wonderful, lovely, and talented person named Leigh Dundas. Leigh, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. And tell Todd, thanks for having me as well. It's always an honor to be here with you guys and your audience. So, yay.
I will. Leigh is, truth be told, a good friend of mine. And God kind of put us together in a really interesting way. Maybe one day we'll tell that story publicly. But for now, Leigh, you've been spending a lot of time in Florida, correct?
Yeah, more time than I would have cared to. I love their politics, but I hate the humidity and the very large mosquitoes that are the size of birds. So you don't often find me in Florida, despite having a love affair with DeSantis and Latipo and all of their leadership and all the good they're doing. But the last little while here, yeah, I've spent more time than I would care to in the state, and there's a good reason for it. I don't regret having focused my attention on Florida. I do regret the fact that I had to focus my attention on Florida. And that's one of the reasons I had asked to be on the show today, is I really think that there's a disconnect between the leadership of Florida and their statements and desires to be tough on crime, and the laws that they've passed that are on their books that really are very, very harsh against child abusers, rapists, child sexual batterers, child trafficking perpetrators, and how they're actually enforcing those laws and investigating such cases. So that's, why I picked up the phone the other day and gave you a jingle. And again, it's really an honor to be here, because I think the world, frankly, needs to know about what's going down on this particular case.
Well, please, tell us what's going on. Our audience may not be aware of this huge fight that you've been in, but essentially, I'm going to let you tell it because I don't want to get it wrong, and it's so insane that it's hard to believe. So please tell us.
Yeah, I mean, as a lawyer, that was my first statement when somebody brought this case to my attention, which was not the family, actually. But they told me the types of things that had gone on. And I'm like, oh, the mother must be incorrect. She's probably not a lawyer. Like, that could never happen. Certainly not in America. Certainly not in an American court system or, with American police agencies. But in fact, what has happened to this family is 100% true and almost defies credulity. Like, I couldn't believe it the first time I heard about it. I talked to law enforcement officers in various jurisdictions who were just friends of mine, not necessarily in Michigan or Florida. And they're like, oh, that could never happen. And I know, John, that was your point of view as well when I first told you, probably, is everybody who hears about the case goes, that can't be right. And yet here we are. So was that not your take on it the first time I told you about it? Be honest. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, at this point, skepticism is something that is harder and harder to find in this house. But we've just seen too much crazy stuff, but it is shocking, right? It is shocking to see that officials in the government would intentionally place a child in harm for, I don't know. I mean, I'm from the South, so I knew we had a good old boy network, right? Like if things didn't get handled the way you wanted, sometimes there was somebody you could call. But you know what? That goes national as well. I had someone tell me that, if you want to get rid of a tax bill, he knew some people you could call. That's not fair. And until our justice system and legal system and tax system is fair, and I don't want to get too far down the fair path on that because maybe no taxes is really fair, right? But yeah, no, this is shocking. It's upsetting that the judiciary, that the police, and even child protective services could be led down this path. But once you put a financial motivation behind anything, even if it's altruistic, it can and usually does get exploited in negative ways. So please explain this.
Well, yeah, with enough fanfare now to tease your audience, which was not my point of view. It was just to share your disbelief and say I had the same amount of disbelief when I first heard the facts. So here's the facts, guys, if you haven't heard about it already. There was a mom and a dad in the state of Michigan who were married. They got divorced. Dad, by his own admission, was a sexual addict and a bit of a player. And by the way, I should say at the outset, everybody I'm talking about is innocent until proven guilty. And even the accused perpetrators, alleged perpetrators, which I will try to use the disclaimers throughout. But if I forget, you can just assume that's what I meant. Everybody's innocent until they've actually been convicted by a jury of 12 or a judge, which has not, regrettably, happened in this case. So with that disclaimer now out there, mom and dad were married. Mom and dad got divorced when their baby girl, they had a little daughter, was about 17 months old. Mom had sole physical custody of the child. So just keep that in mind as you're listening to the rest of the facts. And mom wanted her baby girl to know daddy. She knew that he had fathered another kid out of wedlock and abandoned that child, apparently. So she didn't want the same thing to happen to her daughter. So she was very accommodating when dad would come into town every couple of weeks on the weekend, because he was living out of town at that point, possibly out of state, I forget. She would make sure that the kid could go to dad, every other weekend, twice a month. And for his part, dad would pick up the baby girl from his ex-wife's house, and then he'd go to his mom's house because his mom still had a house in the town. So the paternal grandmother of the little girl, and by the way, I'm going to call the little girl Amy. It's not her actual name. It's a pseudonym, but just so that we can keep the players straight. So he'd pick up Amy and he'd roll down the road to his mom's, the paternal grandmother. And that's where he would enjoy his time sharing every other weekend. Unfortunately, the paternal grandmother, this daddy's mom, had remarried a convicted sex offender. Her husband was already on the Michigan State Registry for having admitted John to 2 years, a 2-year spree, if you will, of raping a wheelchair-bound, brain-injured physical therapy patient of his when she was between the ages of 13 and 15 and in her basement getting physical therapy. Apparently because one day she wore short shorts to her appointment. This is a direct quote from his confession to Michigan detectives. So it's not like Leigh Dundas's, interpretation. I'm actually quoting the convicted sex offender statement about his 2 years of rapes of this handicapped child, that she wore short shorts to the appointment one day, which caused him to become very aroused, which inspired him apparently to lay the girl down perpendicular to him on the gym mat and just start to go at it. He, quote, inserted his penis into her vagina. And because he was so aroused, it didn't take long. And then after he had an orgasm, he pulled his penis out and wiped up the sperm with a hanky. Direct quotes from the detective's report, from the confession of this convicted sex offender. So the step grandpa of Amy is a real winner, as you can already tell, right? He's been on the registry since before Amy was even born. And notwithstanding the fact that Amy's biological father is a policeman, he was a Detroit cop, I think, for a while. Then he became a Florida cop in a variety of agencies and jurisdictions. And usually most people with a brain, certainly policemen who are trained in this, would take measures to ensure that any toddler, preschool child, girl of theirs was not in the presence of a convicted sex offender, certainly not twice a month for days at a time when the guy's already on the Michigan State Registry and has a basement, which seems to be his preferred place to sexually abuse girls. But that's not what the biological cop father in this case did. No. He'd grab Amy every couple of weeks, wander over to his, mom's house. And then according to the girl who disclosed this at the age of about 4, the step grandpa and the dad would go down into the basement with the little girl and they would just take turns with her, sexually abusing her, penetrating her. They would make her play chess, she disclosed to the investigators. And when she lost, of course, she would always lose playing chess against grown men. Her punishment was for her to be penetrated with the queen chess piece, which she also drew a picture of. I forget if it was for the forensic therapist or the forensic, investigators with the police department, but pretty gnarly statements of what had gone on. And mother is horrified when the child finally discloses this and goes running off to the local sheriff's department, who's in charge of law and order in their town. But mind you, her ex-husband is a cop in that area. So
I want to interrupt. Sorry, did I scare you?
I had my volume cranked way up. So yeah, you came in like a freight train. Sorry about that. Woo. Okay,
I apologize. I just wanted to clarify.
We're good. We're good.
It's not the Rapture League. Come back. Okay, so this is all in Michigan, right?
Yeah, Oakland County, Michigan is
Oakland County, Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where the girl lived with the mom and the dad before they were divorced. That's where all the grandparents live. And when the girl disclosed to mom that they were all still living in that area. So Oakland County Sheriff's catches the case. The undersheriff is a man by the name of Michael McCabe. Remind me to come back to that later in the show, John. And they do a real slipshod sort of investigation, if you ask me. You got allegations that an already convicted sex offender who's convicted for raping a handicapped teenager is baby raping or preschool kid raping in his basement again. That warrants, to me, minimally you picking up the phone and calling probation and parole and the sex offender registry people in your state and going, hey, I don't know what's true or not, but we got allegations coming out of a 4-year-old grandchild now that this guy's up to his old tricks. Maybe you should do a drive-by. But that undersheriff, Michael McCabe, couldn't be bothered. And this boy, speaking of good old boys, he's been a cop for 43 years. He sits on 13 different human trafficking, child abuse, intel task forces, state and federal, including he's chairman at some point of the membership and security committee of the Courts and Law Enforcement Management Information System, consisting of over 125 police departments, sheriff's offices, and public safety departments in Michigan, including over 49 district courts, circuit courts, and prosecutors' offices. Which consortium data shares and which unit is recognized by the Department of Justice as the largest and most successful law enforcement consortium in the United States. So Under Sheriff McCabe, number 2 law enforcement officer in Oakland County, Michigan, is hella connected. Oh, by the way, his brother's a sitting Michigan judge. But this old boy, he couldn't be bothered to, go, yeah, we got allegations some dude's a baby raping or a preschool raping. Let's check it out. Let's see if this basement has been turned into, I don't know, what looks like a freaking Toys R Us showroom with little girl beds and little girl pink blankets and little girl chalkboards and little girl dollies. Yeah, no. Couldn't be bothered to go do a drive-by. I mean, legit, John, I have spent more time stalking ex-boyfriends I thought were cheating on me 35 years ago than this charmer of a, about to be retired undersheriff spent on ensuring that the safety of a 4-year-old child was not put in danger. So he opens a case, he shuts a case, he assigns some really newbie, brand new to the job detective and social welfare worker. And he forms an opinion, which he later admits to in a deposition, that he thinks his brother cop is being railroaded and that this is just a custody dispute with a bitter ex-wife, which is a whole flaming pile of hogwash. Because at the time the kid disclosed, guess who had 100% custody of the kid? Mom. So who the hell is she fighting for custody? Herself? I mean, none of it makes any sense, but nobody actually bothered to do right by the child or do a standard law enforcement investigation. So he opens case, he shuts the case. Mom is persistent. Mom goes a number of different places to try to get this case taken up. Every time she hits a new law enforcement officer or agent, little Michael McCabe, undersheriff of Oakland County, doesn't want them to investigate. So he telephones them and goes, oh, we already investigated. There's nothing here. It's just a bitter ex-wife. She's coaching, alienation syndrome, Munchausen by proxy, just, nothing to the kids' allegations to close it out. And if they don't close it out, he goes aggro on their ASS. Oh, yeah. I mean, this guy has cojones the size of Texas. He actually picked up the phone to threaten, in my book, or harass, but he said to just have a phone call with the sitting Michigan judge who eventually ordered a search warrant for the sex offender's basement. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, yeah, the mom persists on trying to get this case taken up. Eventually, the Attorney General's office, Dana Nessel in the state of Michigan, and the Michigan State Police take it up. They find the kids' disclosures to be credible. They decide, yeah, you got allegations that a toddler and a preschool-age child's been raped in the basement of a convicted sex offender's house. Maybe we should go in there with a warrant, right? So they deliver the search warrant in 2019, and they go into this sex offender's basement, and lo and behold, they find an eagle statue right where the little girl said it would be. They find a full chess set right where the little girl said it would be, including the queen chess piece. And most damningly, they find not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, but six seminal fluid stains that just happen to be positioned on the carpet around the perimeter of the girl's toddler preschool little bed there that you see in the photo. And I'm going to hold the photo up again. You see on the carpet here, number 1, number 2, you see these like cut out squares. That is literally where the Michigan State Police went in and they're like, oh, this carpet is showing hot for potential semen or seminal fluid. Let's cut the pieces of carpet out. And bless their heart, they sent them off to their forensic lab. And the Michigan State Police forensic lab comes back a few weeks later and goes, yeah, it is at least, this is a direct quote, at least 160 septillion times more likely if it, meaning one of the seminal fluid stains, originated from, and they named the policeman father, which I'm not going to name here today, but if that stain originated from the father, then if it originated from any other unknown, unrelated contributor on the planet. And as regards another stain, that one was at least 320 quadrillion times more likely if it originated from the convicted sex offender step-grandpa than from any other unknown, unrelated people basically on the planet. I mean, this is what we fondly refer to as a flippin' open and shut case. By the way, the other seminal fluid stains came in at 6.1 quadrillion. By the way, a quadrillion is 15 zeros after the number, and a septillion, not 7 zeros, it's 24 zeros after the number. So we've got septillions, we've got 320 quadrillion, and then the other stains are 6.1 quadrillion, 13 trillion, 10 billion. I mean, these are just astronomical numbers. And when I was working at the DA's office in the early 90s, like, last year of law school, coming out of my legal training and heading into a large law firm to work as a lawyer, that is what the prosecutors would say. Oh, you got a case like that? Good on you, mate. You know you're going to win it, because a freaking baboon, like a jury full of baboons, could go, That's a lot of zeros. That sounds like we got him dead to rights. So based on the strength of that forensic DNA evidence, because DNA evidence doesn't typically lie, and anybody who's watched a CSI or SVU episode knows that, they issue arrest warrants. Grandpa's still living in Michigan. He's picked up in Michigan, but Daddy Bear has trotted himself, jackrabbited down to the state of Florida. So it's actually JSO, it's Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, that arrests Daddy. And pursuant to warrant, at the same time they arrest one of their own, they take his cell phone and his laptops and his iPads and his computers. And then they take the whole kit and caboodle, the biological policeman father of this little girl, and all his electronics, because they being Florida, they were executing on Michigan's warrant. And they send the whole tamale back to Michigan, the daddy and his electronics, where Michigan law enforcement goes to their Internet Crimes Against Children unit and has a little look-see into those electronics. And it is absolutely frightening what they find. Do you remember, John, when I first told you what they found, how you felt?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah, it is. It was, yeah, I know your mic was on. It was horrifying. So they just start looking into all of his electronic images, of which there were more than 10,000 pictures combined. And they've just started scratching the surface. And already these two law enforcement officers subsequently testified in a deposition under oath. So we know they're telling the truth, or at least we can assume they're telling the truth, that they found, quote, naked pictures of both boys and girls that appeared to be, quote, possibly prepubescent. They found other sorts of graphics and peoples and images that indicated the assault and or sexual assault of what appeared to be children. And these are the horrifying ones. These are my favorites. They found, quote, very young children involved in sexual acts with adults. And finally, not least, very young children appearing to be tortured and or in bondage. So now we have a kid who alleged she was raped by her biological father and her already convicted for sex offenses step-grandfather in the step-grandfather's basement. We have a basement that never should have probably been allowed to look like this, because once you're on the state registry for raping babies and kids, you're not supposed to be anywhere near beds and dollies and freaking toys. And you've got DNA evidence that is open and shut, incontrovertible almost. And now, as an added cherry on top of this whole pile of evidence, we've got a separate standalone case for CSAM. Likely CSAM, child sexually abusive material, i.e. kiddie porn type images. Now, I should say they had not gotten done analyzing these images, because it is true that you could have a 19-year-old Asian lady who's 82 pounds and 4'10", because that's just her biological lot in life. And she looks prepubescent because she shaved and she never got boobs. And you look like you're looking at a kid photo, but you're not. But I will say that both of these law enforcement officers took cares to say naked boys and girls or very young children was the direct quote, which is, I haven't seen those photos, but that my takeaway on that is these looked like kids, not teenagers that are maybe adults, maybe not. But we don't really know, because incomprehensibly, after one of the male prosecutors working for the AG's office in Michigan was found to have fallen in love and dated a different rape victim or sexual assault victim on a different case, which is unethical, Dana Nessel, in her esteemed judgment, decided to just wash her hands of that guy's whole caseload, including this case. Girl, you've got an open and shut DNA case. You have a separate standalone case on apparent child pornography possession by a cop who is now working in Florida as a school police officer, by the way, lady, with unmitigated, unfettered access, I'm guessing minimally, to dozens, if not hundreds, if not maybe thousands, depending on the size of that metropolitan department, school children, or minimally, even if he's a paper pusher cop, he's got access to all their files. What's in the files of public school kids? Well, the kids who are part of foster care, who are runaways, who are vulnerable, who've already been sexually abused, you know, the vulnerable ones. Yeah. So this cop daddy worked for 5 years, maybe longer, for a school police department. In the middle of his tenure is when they arrested him and sent him off to Michigan. The judge who heard the bond hearing was like, dude, I've been on the bench. This is her direct quote. Quite frankly, In almost 20 years I've been on the bench, I've never denied an individual bond, but I think if there's any case, this would be the case for the following reasons. Hello, because it's a really strong case based on what y'all found, DNA and pictures, right? But no, Dana Nessel tells the cops working this case to freeze their work. One of the guys testifies in the deposition, I was about to document this, meaning what he was starting to find on the pictures. That's how close the timeline was. And then the assistant male prosecutor's misconduct on the case came to light. And I was quickly advised by, well, I couldn't tell you who it was, but both the AG, meaning Dana Nessel's office, the Attorney General, and the Michigan State Police do not do anything else with this case, just freeze it. This cop and prosecutor were given direct orders by the AG and the state police in their jurisdiction to stand the hell down and to stop when they were midway into reviewing over 10,000 images that had already shown very young kids being sexually assaulted by adults and tortured and or being held in bondage, and naked boys and girls that appear to be possibly pubescent. They were told to freeze their review of that evidence, and then it gets worse, John. So it stayed frozen for a while. And then I don't know the period of time after, but it came up again because we still had the guy's devices that the images were found on. And then I received guidance from our detective command staff, just dispose of it. Like when I say dispose of it, I don't mean throw it in the trash, but release it back to the suspect. If it's nothing that was going to be charged, meaning prosecuted, then just release it and don't even worry about detailing what was on it. So these two law enforcement officers were told to freeze their work, stand down, hand the evidence back to the accused rapist who works at a school district as a police officer, and not even to bother to document it. Lady, and by lady, I mean Attorney General of Michigan, I got some questions for you. Who the hell are you protecting? You took a freaking oath, an oath when you passed the bar, and probably another oath when you were sworn in as the AG, to protect the citizens of your state by prosecuting the criminals. Is this how you handle a bank robbery? You walk over to the bank robber and go, here's your gun and all the money you stole. We're just going to give it back to you and go with God down to the Sunshine State and retire because we're not going to prosecute you. Like, what are you even thinking? And by the way, I don't know why it took me freaking months of swimming around in this case to finally have this aha moment yesterday, but I was walking around in the forest in the mountains 2 days ago when I got this sunburn, and it occurred to me, John, they're only a little bit into reviewing these images. I don't think they got even halfway. They have no idea what the other images held. Was a picture of Amy in there? Could have been, because Amy later told the judge on the record that her father used to, quote, sometimes make me take my clothes off and videotape me with his cell phone dancing. And she told therapists that after her dad taught her how to pole dance and made her pose for the cameras and all this stuff, that he would then, quote, punch buttons on his phone. Between those two statements, one to a sitting judge in Florida and the other to her therapist, and I think to law enforcement in Michigan, don't quote me on that, but minimally to her therapist, you've got not just the probable production of child pornography by a policeman father of his minor 2, 3, 4-year-old daughter. You have, if he's punching numbers on his phone, the probable distribution, transmission of child pornography, which under federal law is an extra charge on top of just having pictures of naked children or allegedly naked children on your devices. So yeah, we don't know if Amy was in there because they never finished their review. The dad, in the meantime, after divorcing his wife, married his sex swinging mistress. They used to run ads in Craigslist, Boynton Beach, Miami, I think Gainesville. The dad would literally say, oh, I've got a big old X amount of inch, you know what, and I'm straight, but my wife is bi, and she wants a big COCK inside of her tonight, and we're swingers, we're STD free, we got a place on the water, give us a call. Like, so he goes off and marries this charming woman who's wired like he is apparently, and she has 2 children of her own. Courtesy of the AG's incomprehensible, inconceivable, and I would say downright reckless, if not actionable failure to actually carry out their job and look through the rest of the photos, we have no idea if, you know, Amy's father's got pictures of her in there, if there might be pictures of his new stepchildren in there. And sure as shooting, I don't think the AG's office ever requisitioned from his employer, a major county metropolitan school district in a major city in Florida, the yearbook photos of all the kids that were coming through his school at the time he was school policing to see if any of their photos were in there. If I were a parent in that school district right now, I would be out for blood. I would be calling Michigan right now and being like, you finish your damned review of this. I want to know if a picture of my kid is in that cop's phone or his devices. But yeah, that never got done. So, and then because the Michigan State Attorney General decides to not forward the prosecution because one of the many prosecutors did something wrong on a different case, which, by the way, he was investigated for any mishandlings of Amy's case and subsequently cleared of any wrongdoing. So this could have still been a good case for Michigan AG. They dismiss it, and now Daddy and Grandpa have to be released from jail. So they go running down to the Sunshine State, make happy little homes for themselves. Grandpa's on the sex offender registry down in Florida. Daddy goes back. I don't know what the school district was thinking. If I were counsel for the school district, I used to represent municipalities and boards. Like City of West Covina was my client in the 90s. If I were counsel for this entity, I'd be like, I don't give a rat's behind what kind of contract this man has. We ain't hiring him back. But they did. And then they actually elevated this guy into the acting school police chief of the school district of this county, because you just can't make this up. And now, because this guy has failed to be held accountable for his crimes or his alleged crimes, he does two things. He sues the mom, the cops, and the prosecutor who were chasing him in Michigan for wrongful prosecution because, you know, he's the victim here. He can put the white hat on because, hello, lady, and by lady, I mean Attorney General Dana Nessel. That is one of the pieces of fallout when you fail to fully prosecute somebody, when you have them dead to rights. So he's playing the victim card and like, oh, I'm going to go sue all of these people and get their insurance carriers probably to do policy limit 6 or 7 digit payout. And then he chases mom down and his kid in the Florida Alachua County Family Law Courthouse in Gainesville. And he files a motion to get 100% sole physical custody of his kid back. Then, oh my gosh, time's flying. So then he pulls in the worst judges ever, the presiding judge of Alachua Family Courthouse, Honorable James P. Nilon, Nilon, catches the case. He makes a series of bizarro rulings. He orders the child's therapist off the case. He puts his own bad therapist on the case by the name of Tracy Stolberg in Michigan. He further orders all of the therapists remaining on the case to not allow the child to discuss the past sexual abuse. So the kid will try to talk about her abuse in therapy, and the therapist, Tracy Stolberg, will go, no, 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 to the little girl. No, no, no. Your truth is you never got hurt, which spins the little child out who's now 9. She's in 3rd grade so damn bad that she is, as a result, I would contend of this judge's reckless felony child endangering type orders from the bench. She becomes suicidal, praying to God every night to ask her mother to kill her so she can start a new life. She actually tells the Honorable James Nilon the result of his aberrated order. She tells him on the record in a hearing, December 7th, 2020, by the way, when I try to say something in therapy, the therapist won't let me say it. And as a result, it makes me feel worthless because I'm trying to say something and she won't let me say it. And then she goes on and says, I want to die. And she also tells the judge during that hearing, oh, by the way, sometimes my dad would make me take my clothes off and videotape me with his cell phone dancing. And what does this judge do? He seals the transcript so nobody can find out about the fact that this 9-year-old is now suicidal, probably as a proximate result of his freaking weird orders. And he orders the mandated therapists, the therapists who are mandated reporters under state law, on the record to not report to state authorities, which is a felony in the state of Florida. If you're a mandated reporter and you fail to report as a judge or a teacher or a cop or a therapist, that's a felony, but I'm pretty sure the judges get a pass in the state of Florida. I'm sure there's an exception that covers the arses of all these charming dinosaurs from the dark ages on the family law bench in Florida. And the final thing this mother does, mother trucker, as Scott McKay would say, on the last day before he retires from the bench, family law judge, December 31st, 2020, he holds the mother in contempt of court and fines her $237,629 for getting her kid therapy after her kid became suicidal as a direct result of this judge's aberrated orders to not let her kid talk about her abuse. And further, he holds the mother in contempt and fines her almost $250,000 in a 91 paragraph order after a 2-week hearing on this for the mother's act of having cooperated with an ongoing Michigan State Police and Attorney General investigation that yielded all of the incontrovertible, rock solid DNA evidence and apparent pictures of child pornography on this man's phone and computers. So then he retires. He hands the case to his good buddy, Judge Robert Grobe. Grobe admits that before Nylon retired, Nylon gave him this case along with Nylon's impressions of the case. And then he goes on to say on the record, August 8th of 2024, that he, shocking, 100% agrees with his predecessor, the presiding judge, and that judge's assessment before he retired, and that he is going to 100% carry out Judge Nylon's orders. He is going to double down. He says he is not going to allow any of the alleged evidence of sexual molestation to come in because it's unreliable. I'm like, really? Unreliable? You've got 160 with 24 zeros after it. You've got a septillion, buddy. What is reliable if that's not reliable in your court? An octillion? Do we need 3 more zeros? Do we need 6 more zeros? What I really think you are saying, Judge Grobe, by the way, was a prosecuting attorney. Judge Grobe, before he became a judge on the family law bench, represented the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And Judge Grobe, fascinatingly enough, was also born in Michigan. Yeah, isn't it super interesting right there? Anyway, I got a question for Judge Grobe. I don't think you actually believe the children in your court. I don't think you actually believe in DNA evidence. I don't think you actually believe in pictorial evidence. I think what you're saying, the essential grit and gist of what you're saying is, I'm not ever going to allow any evidence of child rape in this courtroom unless I see it happen in front of my own eyes. So why don't you come on in here, policeman father, and rape the child in front of me? Because that's the only evidence I'm ever going to allow in a child custody case to come on in my court. He didn't say it, but he may as well have said it. So he disallows any evidence of sexual molestation. And then he goes one step further. In August, he admits on the record, John, that the kid is pretty lucid, pretty intelligent, had no pregnant pauses in her testimony. And that is when he reviewed the testimony of her in front of the earlier judge when she was 9 years old. He admits she's 4 years older now. She's almost 14. She clearly knows the difference between right and wrong and the truth and a lie. But that doesn't mean he's going to let her testify in this child custody hearing. And then he goes on to ban her from even saying which parent she wants to live with, because he doesn't want children to think that they're the ones driving the train here. And he admits he has been a family law judge for almost 15 years, and he has had hundreds. He admitted to this on the record, hundreds of families and lawyers requesting that their minor children testify in a custody proceeding, which is the law in Florida, that you allow children to be heard about which parent they want to live with. Because, hello, it's their freaking life that you're in charge of. He's had hundreds of people requesting it, but he's only ever allowed it in 2 or 3 occasions. And then he orders this child on January 7th, 50-50 unsupervised visitation back to dad, starting President's Day weekend. Now you want to hear what the Child Welfare Agency did to protect little Amy over Valentine's Day?
I don't want to, but I have to. And by the way, guys, if you're listening, please like this post, please comment, because attention is what these judges, these attorneys, these police officers fear more than anything else. Well, actual justice they may be also afraid of, but attention is the antidote to corruption.
Yeah, indeed. So, all right, wrapping this up real quick here. The mother's ordered to bring the child to the alleged raping father, that, you know, we can say is innocent now because we just keep not prosecuting him and not looking at the actual evidence and not allowing it into trial. So she brings her kid in on Valentine's Day, the 14th, because he's supposed to have custody of this child unsupervised days and nights at his house from Saturday, February 15th at noon, all the way through Tuesday. 4 joyous days for this little child to spend with Daddy Bear. And mom comes into the state because she can't really not. I mean, she's had her butt handed to her for for the crime of cooperating with a Michigan State Police investigation. So she doesn't want to be held in contempt of court a second time. So she brings the kid in, and she gets a call midday from the Department of Child and Family, which is the CPS type agency in Florida. Apparently, they've gotten a report, shocker, that the child is starting to mentally decompensate in advance of this proposed custodial visit. And they got concerns for the kid's welfare. So they ordered the mom and the kid to come in for an interview to their headquarters in this major city that they're in northern Florida. So the mother's like, okay. So she shows up with her kid at the Department of Child and Family headquarters. And she thinks that the kid is going to go in for an interview, like with trained female social workers or cops or somebody that's got some training in this type of case. and that there'll be a nice couch and audio video recording to capture her child's statements. You know, like Hollywood is able to get right whenever we turn on the boob tube at 8 p.m. Again, any kindergartners who's watched Law and Order could tell you how this should have gone down. Not what happens. The child and mother show up. It's a dirty, dusty commercial building, dead cockroaches in the corner, dust everywhere, metal chairs, nothing that anybody even wants to sit on. The kid goes in a room with the social worker, and the social worker for DCF makes an incomprehensible decision, just like Dana Nessel, the state AG, to not prosecute the guy. She decides, John, she's going to invite a passing Florida patrolman cop who has no training at all, like just a random patrol cop off the city beat. She invites him into the equation. So now the cop shows up in the building. Now, mind you, the child's allegations are that she was raped by her daddy, a Florida cop, who is got dark hair, dark eyes, white, 6 foot, whatever, X amount of weight. Who walks in the door to interview her about the alleged rape by her Detroit, Florida cop father? A Florida cop who's the same height, same race, same sex, same weight, same hair color, same eye color, dead ringer for her father, her accused rapist. Not what any modern day social welfare or police agency should ever do. You don't have men do these interviews at all because most women and girls were raped by men. So that's why you have women like me do it. Secondly, they're supposed to be trained. Third, you're supposed to be audio video recording. Fourth, you're supposed to make the child interview comfortable. And fifth, if the allegation is that the human trafficking or child rape or female victim was ever abused by anybody in a position of authority, a judge in a robe, a cop in a uniform, a prosecutor, anybody in a position of power, you do not throw her in a room with a male cop in uniform to get her to disclose. And yet that's what they do. And because the guy has no training, when the little girl says, yeah, something along the lines of, yeah, if I go back to my dad this weekend, I'm as good as dead, because he had allegedly earlier threatened to kill her if she ever disclosed. What this untrained patrolman cop hears on his busy start on Friday to his long weekend is, oh, little girl, you're suicidal. So what does he do? He grabs her by the scruff of the neck. Well, not really, I think by the elbow, marches her out the back door of the DCF child welfare building. And together, this Florida cop and the Department of Child and Family put her into the back of a police car where you put the criminals with the metal cage and no door handles. Yeah. And she gets a taxpayer-funded ride across town to a locked down, violent juvenile psychiatric psych ward where she is forced to be committed and spends all Friday night, Valentine's, all day Saturday, all Saturday night, all day Sunday and Sunday night, Monday night, all the way till Tuesday in a lockdown ward with 8 and 10 and 12-year-olds who are so freaking actually violent that they are body blow, kidney punching the adult female worker until 3 other male techs have to pull the child assaulter off the employee of the psych ward. Yeah. Holes in the bathroom doors so they can watch you go into the bathroom and make sure you're not killing yourself in there. There's no conditioner. There's no soap. Can't have the girls eating it and committing suicide. They can't even see grass when they go outside once a day because the girls will eat the grass, which has pesticide, and commit suicide. So this is a charming place. This is what DCF is doing to keep children safe. They're punishing them, treating them like a damned criminal, throwing them in the back of a squad car, and unlawfully, because this kid was not suicidal, John, committing this child to keep her safe. Yeah, for the last 5 days out of that long week. And then the DCF entity calls the mom and goes, well, we can't really do the interview while the Baker Act process, the involuntary psych hold's going on. And then, oh, we can't really we don't even know if or when we're going to do the interview. So they baited and switched this kid into their headquarters on the promise of interviewing her about her alleged abuse. Oh, it gets worse. I forgot to mention Friday night, before DCF had even bothered to download the kid properly and do an interview on her allegations, what do? They pick up the phone and they call the kid's alleged rapist cop father and they tell him where she is. Oh yeah. So guess what this guy does? True to form, he shows up in the middle of the lockdown psych ward the next day demanding to see his kid and telling the nurses at the psychiatric facility that DCF, the Department of Child and Family, is trying to arrange for his child's safety a safety discharge of his alleged rape victim to him, the alleged rapist. Luckily, the psychiatric facility's like, I don't think so, Scooter. Thank God they didn't release her. And then the final nail in the coffin is at the end of this kid's psych hold, the mom is talking to DCF once more, and the DCF worker says, she says something like, are you going to do a no contact order? Like, the psychiatric facility is now basically concerned for my child's welfare, and they're saying there's things you can do to protect her. And the DCF worker goes, yeah, we don't do no contact orders. And the mom's like, then how do you keep kids that you're investigating the cases of safe? And they're like, yeah, our department does not do no contact orders. I'm like, wow. So here we are in 2025, and you're telling me as a child welfare agency in the year 2025 in a red state that made its mark saying they're tough on child crime, they're tough on rape, they're tough on child sex trafficking, that you got no freaking legal maneuvers in your toolkit, lady, to keep children who are being raped or attempted to be killed by their parents, allegedly, safe while you're doing an investigation. But that's where we are. So if you think an injustice has been done on this case, I want you to go right now to leighdundas.com. That's my website. My mother gave me extra letters. Leigh has 5 letters, Leigh, Dundas, Dundas.com. I want you to go to the child abuse page. At the bottom of that page, right above the pictures, there's a place you can sign up to stay involved. We're probably going to be doing a rally the week of St. Patrick's Day, because this kid is supposed to go back for 7 or 8 days with her daddy on March 22nd for spring break. So we're going to be doing a rally in all likelihood to tell Florida what we think about this. And I need to be able to activate the masses. The other thing you need to do, you are the heroes that we've been waiting for. You are the people. I need you to go to that website right now, and at the very bottom above the photos, after you sign up to stay involved, I want you to do the homework where it says, if you think an injustice has been done, there's 4 email addresses and phone numbers for the governor, for the attorney general, for the head of the Department of Child and Family. And I want you to print my website page out, attach your thoughts about why this is an injustice. If you can't logically cohere them together, I gave you a sample paragraph. Just circle it and email it. Okay. Yeah. Child abuse case right there. There you go, John. Go scroll to the bottom, scroll all the way to the bottom, all the way to the down, all the way 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 up. Oh, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Further, further, further up. There. There we go. So those 4 blue paragraphs, that's who you're going to email, who you're going to call. And right above in the bold black letters, those are my thoughts of a sample paragraph that you could include. But again, if you're feeling lazy, just print my whole damn webpage off and email it to those people and say, this is unacceptable right now. You guys are batting for the wrong team. You need to actually protect the children in your state. So that's my pitch. By the way, there are amazing holistic remedies that can keep us, the freedom fighters, alive. And I am doing this case pro bono, like I do all of my sex slavery, freedom fighting work. But I do have a mortgage like all of you, and I do have a kid in college like some of you. And so if you would like to learn more about stem cells, which, by the way, stem cells, they did a stem cell injection on a quadriplegic in San Diego, old guy, who had been a quad for 7 years. And ABC News on April 2nd last year was filming the quadriplegic in his backyard, walking around his pool deck, upright and vertical with a cane. Okay, stem cells are very, very effective, 0 side effects on the type of stem cell we do. If you want to learn more about how to get your bone-on-bone knee or your torn rotator cuff healthy without going to an orthopedic surgeon, go to the Healthy Living part of my website, click on the Healthy Living page, sign up to get more information. There is also an oxygen water. This is a lady's blood. Okay, this is what it looked like before she drank the water, the Hawaiian Islands. That is not healthy blood. That is what it looked like 2 minutes after drinking the water. This is a lady who cut off her thumb in Milan, Italy. The University of Milan put the oxygen water in the bandage. Her thumb grew back, guys. We are not starfish. We're not salamanders, but her thumb grew back. And the University of Milan was like, wow, it looks like the oxygen in the water reactivated a gene that is active when fetuses are being formed. So again, there are amazing holistic remedies, which I know John Davidson and Todd Callender talk about a lot. If you want to help support this child's case, you can make a donation direct to the mom and her child on my website. I'm not getting any of that money though. So if you've got some health challenges, or you just want to live healthy and get oxygen water into your blood, or you just want to look into stem cell, go to the Healthy Living page on my website, because that is what allows me to give back to this fight and not have to charge mothers and children who have not just been raped allegedly by policemen, but a second time by the judges who were supposed to protect them, the attorney generals who were supposed to prosecute their cases, and now in the final analysis by the child welfare agency that was supposed to keep them safe, and instead is saying, we can't do any legal orders to keep your kids safe. So that's it. That's my plug for today.
Leigh, that's there are more questions than we have time for. I know you got a hard out here, but thank you for pursuing this case. And I'm sure people are going to have a lot of questions. We may have to bring you back on with Todd. This is so egregious. I'm covering a lot of similar cases out of Norway. It's strange that this is happening all across the planet, but at the same time, as awful as this is, we do have people starting to shine a light on it, which is really how we fix it. So thank you for what you're doing. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, other than thank you for having me. I know I was fire hosing your audience, but they're awake, they're smart, they're savvy. All of the facts are on my website. So if you missed any pieces of this, just go read that website page. And the last thing I would leave you with is, you are the heroes upon whom you've been waiting. Bobby Kennedy and Flynn and Trump and the Dundases and Davidsons and Calendars of the world are not going to save America and your children and you. The reason we are living through what I believe was a second Holocaust is because we didn't fully get it right the first time. We waited on Churchill and Eisenhower, whoever was in office, to save. It wasn't the German people who stood up and said, hell no, we're not baking our neighbors who are Jews in ovens, Hitler, we ain't doing that. I believe societally we are going through a similar evolution here because God and the powers that be are waiting on the people to fight their corner. And I'm asking you, take 20 minutes out of your day and go fight for this child, because one day, heaven forbid, it might be your child, and you are going to be relying on the team of good people in the world to stand up and show up. So please go to the website. Please check out the Healthy Living stuff so I can stay in the saddle fighting it. You can get healthy living stuff going on in your life, but minimally do your homework and write or email the Child Welfare Agency and the AG in the state of Florida. And thanks again for having me on, John. It's been an honor.
You bet, Leigh. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll be in touch.
Bye, y'all.
Goodbye.
Bye, John.